What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and I am the co-host and co-producer of the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And as part of that team last year, I was able to reach out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. As always, I like to say, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We are broadcasting live May 29th on Black Canada Talking. So whether you've been here or whether you've not been here, Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And also we showcase Black Canadians. And we have return friends coming on today. And the last time they were on, they said, we have a big event happening in May, and we're going to update you on that event after we've done it. So they have done it. So that's why they're back today. But the organization called Black Youth Empowerment, it consists of 6 high school students who in the winter of 2020 began reviewing program content on bystander intervention from the Project Respect program out in British Columbia. Believe Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, they will. And the focus of the group is to ensure that the information about bystander intervention is culturally relevant. And the primary question they're always looking to get answered is, how does the content resonate with the group's Black identities and experiences? And we have a whole pile of people from the organization on today. So we're going to bring them all up at once and let's get them on the stage. We got that. We got some more people. I think we got some other people. Got some more people on. Yeah, yep. There we go. 4 squared. We are fantastic today. So looking forward to everyone. I know I see 3 familiar faces and there's one who's brand new. So we're looking forward to the conversation. We're going to find out a little bit about the organization and some results and some experiences from the event in May, or just recently happened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Dr. Lisa to chat first about the organization, and then we're going to go one by one and get everyone else to introduce themselves. So Dr. Lisa Gunderson, she is back. She is a friend of the Black Canada Talking community and family, and she is back, and she steers the ship while the others drive the ship. So Dr. Lisa, how you doing today?
I am great. How are you, Dr. Vibe?
I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem.
Thank you so much for having us back. It's wonderful to be here.
Our pleasure. Well, a little bit about yourself, those who may not know you, and then a little bit more about the organization.
I'm Dr. Lisa Gunderson. I'm known in our communities as Dr. Lisa, Dr. G, and I am a clinical child psychologist and an anti-racist workshop presenter. And I work a lot in schools and in school settings with administrators and ministry, etc., trying to provide better spaces that are going to be anti-racist for our students, more equitable, etc. So I have this wonderful opportunity to work with a group called Black Youth Empowerment. And this particular group is a set of high school students who were brought together with the Victoria Sexual Assault Center's Project Respect. They received a grant by the Public Health Agency of Canada to kind of look at bystander intervention from a Black youth lens. And part of that project is creating safer spaces for Black youth in our classrooms. And we have a representative here who's also part of our team. There are 3 adults who are part of our team. And Amara is one of them. She's here today. She'll be explaining some more. Nothing happens without Amara. She
Okay.
Everything for us. She is our contact with to the rest of the community. She works with Project Respect, so she's our liaison for that. And I am more of a kind of a consultant support for our youth, along with Nichola Watson, who is my sister friend from Jamaica, African Canadian, and she's unfortunately not able to be here with us today. We have 2 of our youth here. 2 of our other youth are working. One is at a memorial So unfortunately, they're not able to join us, but we are here to represent.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, as I said, two of the faces I know, but we're going to go to the new face first. Amara, welcome, welcome. And can you share a bit about yourself and the organization? And I have more questions, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
For sure. First, thanks so much for having us today. I'm so excited to be able to be on. I did watch the previous show that the youth did, and it was just so awesome. So I'm really excited to be here today. I'm Amara. My pronouns are she and her. And my people are white settlers from Ireland, Scotland, and Norway originally, but they've been here in Canada, settling uninvited on these territories for about 6 generations. So that's kind of where I come from. And I've been working at the Sexual Assault Center in Victoria since 2019 in the Project Respect department, which is a youth education kind of branch of what the center does. And so they've presented workshops to high school students for many years, but a lot of those workshops were developed to primarily a white lens and really we're focused on consent and preventing sexualized violence, but there was a really big gap, I think, in our programming around racialized violence in schools. And so I've been really lucky to work with the Black Youth Empowerment Project since 2020, which was kind of, a collaboration that I was able to be a part of from the beginning. And it's been really awesome working with these amazing youth and with Dr. G and with Nichola as well. So thanks so much.
You are very welcome, and thanks for taking time to watch the previous conversations. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. So let's go over to the veterans now, because they're at least, the veterans have been here before, so they know the drill. So who's going to introduce themselves first? Hand up, go first.
My name is Avi Gunderson. I'm the son of Dr. Lisa, and I go to Mount Douglas Secondary, which is in SD 63. And I'm super excited to be here. I joined Black Youth Empowerment since it started, and everybody here has joined it since it started. So I'm just super excited to be here and hopefully answer some more questions that you might have.
Welcome, Avi. Welcome back. Great to have you. Next.
Hi, my name is Samara, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm in grade 10, and I go to Esquimalt High School. Do you want to know anything else right now?
Absolutely. Well, it's your stage. You got the stage right now, so you're in control.
All right. I've been with Bi since the beginning, I guess, and I'm excited to be here.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, let's get right down to it. This big event that you're going to be sharing with us today, how did it come about? We're going to get to it, but give us the background. How did the process leading to the big event, how did it happen?
I just wanted to say, before I answer that question, I just wanted to quickly let everybody know that almost all of us are coming to you today from Lekwungen speaking territories, specifically the Songhees Esquimalt nations. And that's really important because we open up all of our meetings acknowledging the facts that we are on unceded territories and lands, and how we're honored to be able to do this kind of work with that. So I just wanted to put that out there first. Amara, would you like to take a stab at one aspect of how this came about? And
Sure, I'll give it a go. So Black Youth Empowerment for the last couple of years has been really focused on creating workshops for other young people and supporting Black high school students with their experiences of racialized violence in schools. And I think something that came up a lot in the previous workshops with the youth audience was that it's not just violence that's being perpetuated by other youth or by strangers, but especially by teachers and school staff in the community, and what a difficult experience that is to be trying to learn, be trying to just experience your day-to-day kind of public school life and not being able to do that because of the microaggressions and larger instances of racialized violence being perpetuated by people who work in your school, who are supposed to be looking out for you, teaching you. And so I think that was a real big area of concern for everyone in the group and for the people who've attended our workshops as well. And so addressing that issue and trying to really create, as the title of the workshop says, like safer and braver classrooms is something that was really important to the team this year.
Now, were you approached, or did they did you go to approach them? How did that first interaction happen before the conference became a real deal, or this presentation became a real deal?
I will say that one of the things is, like Amara said, this was the youth who really thought about this. And so we're actually not in those conversations. We step out when the youth are creating, so they can have that conversation. So they can probably give you an insight into kind of their thoughts around that. And then they bring that to us, and then it's up to us to figure out how to get that out to the school. We did recognize that there were Pro-Ds coming up, professional development days. And so we thought this would be awesome to be able to offer it as a professional development opportunity to two of our biggest districts, SD 61 and 63, that's Victoria and Saanich, and to open it up to other, let the word get out to other districts as well. But the dates were specifically targeted to the districts that are youth. They're in the schools that they attend across those two districts for them to attend. But I think I'll let the youth maybe talk about.
Yeah, I want to hear from them. I'm very intrigued to hear how they stepped up. So who wants to give it a go first? Like, who thought of this idea? How did it come about?
Well, I'll just say that I can only speak from what I think happened, is that we were doing these presentations for other Black youth. And I guess one of my thoughts was that the common denominator was that all of these Black youth were having issues with their teachers. And most of the issues that we've been facing have been in a school setting. And when something happens in a school setting, usually it's probably because the teachers aren't doing exactly everything that maybe they should be or could be doing. So I think that was probably one of the things that, if we can help teachers, then that would make the experience for Black students in schools just so much more easy to navigate.
Avi, anything you want to add to what was just shared?
Yeah, I feel like going into it, we had two workshops before this, and after we did our first one, our mentors were like, should we go to the teachers now? And we were like, so we didn't do it that time, so we did another workshop. But then after that, we were still a bit timid, but then we decided, you know what, let's do it. So yeah.
What made the change of mind at that time? Because you were approached before to do it. Why did you change your mind this time? Well, was there was there a moment or event that, okay, now we're ready to present to the teachers?
I think it was because we've already done it 2 times to both kids. And we're like, well, we've already done it 2 times, we don't know if we want to do it a 3rd time, 4th time. So you know what, we'll just go to that next level because we feel like we're ready, and we were ready for the questions and everything. So yeah, we're just a lot better, a lot more prepared.
Good stuff. Interesting. Agent Bay has a comment here, and maybe it's best we address it now, maybe not later on. He's saying, yes, please give us a scenario that students encounter with teachers. He would like to get a sense of the issue because he's based in the United States. So he's just hearing about this for the first time. So could either one of you give a scenario of the type of encounters that are not productive that some of you or some of your fellow classmates are having with teachers?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that we talked about in our presentation to the teachers was the N-word. And I think something that I do know that happens is the use of the N-word of the N-word by the teachers in like an academic way is probably something that happens like too often. And I know for me, I've had teachers like say, "Can I use the N-word?" Like, and they've looked at me and asked that, and I can't consent for all Black people. You know, I can only say what I'm comfortable with, and as a student, I don't even understand what I'm comfortable with, especially in that moment because it's a teacher, and I assume that they know better than me. So I know that a lot of teachers feel a little too comfortable saying the N-word when reading like from books or as an example. So I know that's something that we talked about.
Okay. Want to add anything, Avi?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of genres of questions, I guess, but we didn't really cover that much about like like not like kind of like front to front racism in a sense. Like one Black person, there's a white person being racist to a Black person. It wasn't like mainly like a lot of our questions were about the N-word, like songs with the N-word in it. Should they be allowed to play it? The book, so To Kill a Mockingbird from like the 19 something has it in there, and teachers still to this day say it out loud because it's like teaching or whatever, because they're teaching the words, so they should be allowed to say it. So that came up a lot, the really old books. And yeah, there was this one question which was, what if a Black person wanted to identify as being white or something? There were like a lot of just like a lot of difficult questions, but we tried to answer it in our best way possible. But most of our questions, like Samara said, came directly like from the N-word.
Can I add a bit
Absolutely.
to that? Part of one of the things that they had to do is shift over the way that they present to students to teachers. And that's something we can talk about more because the content isn't exactly one-to-one. They had to spend some months really kind of redoing some scenarios. And one of the other areas and aspects was like when a student comes to you with a racialized incident, like they tell you that something has happened, the response that teachers give back can perpetuate that violence or it can help. And so they gave some specific examples, like if somebody comes to you and says, this incident happened, for a teacher, instead of saying, oh, well, why don't I take you to the principal and we'll talk, versus instead of saying that, because that may not be the right solution, saying to the student, what do you think would be best? How could I support you in that way, right? Or if there's microaggressions that are happening in the classroom that are hurting the student, one of the things that teachers may sometimes say, oh, they didn't mean it, or, you know, that person I'm sure is a really nice person or something like that. Instead, specifically giving an example of saying, you know what, I'm so sad that you still are in a society or an environment that causes that harm to you, right? Like, so there were some very specific scenarios and ways that teachers tend to respond that were given. And then they thought of alternate ways to respond instead that would be more supportive as opposed to perpetuating more violence that may be happening in the classroom.
Okay.
Can I just add one
Absolutely.
thing? Yeah, I think with Avi saying like some students want, like a Black student, I think wanting to identify as white, I don't know if it was quite that. I think the teacher was asking like what should I call you? Like, is Black an appropriate term, or African American, African Canadian? And I think they may have encountered someone who did not want to be called Black, or that's what she had said had happened. So that was also a conversation I think we had.
Good stuff. I know we'll get more into the actual conversation itself. I still want to look at the process. So Did you have to present the idea to any sort of group or board before you did the full-fledged presentation? Or did you just say, we want to do this? And they said yes. So what was that process like?
I will answer from the kind of Pro-D aspect and then toss it to Amara, who can answer it from the Project Respect piece. Once the group has decided that that's what they were going to do, we just threw it out there. So we didn't call any of the districts and ask them if this is okay, if you want to do that. In fact, it was almost the opposite. Everything was built and then it was sent out. And a lot of teachers were encouraged to join if you can. And I think because this is an area where I do a lot of trainings for teachers, etc., that number of 80 plus teachers across different districts is a great number. Like that, usually you're looking at maybe 25, 30, because teachers have the right to go to anything that they want to. This is not mandatory. And so that's how many, to me, it just really highlights how much teachers really want to know this information, or at least hear from students themselves, as opposed to us. And we'll talk about that later, but this was 100% student run from the very beginning, when we started with Black Young and Gifted by Nina Simone to open, to the very end. It was 100% run by the 6 youth. The adults did not say anything, except to, if there's a question, we helped monitor the chat and we just said, Miss Smith has a question. But they handled all of that, including the research questions that they asked, the polling that they did. Amara, do you want to talk about from the Project Respect end?
Yeah, so Project Respect, in general, the mandate for that part of the Victoria Sexual Assault Center is that it's all youth-led. And that actually is really kind of what drew me to the position in the first place. And I think that's what has allowed for this partnership between Project Respect and Black Youth Empowerment to be so productive, because really what we're there to provide is just kind of the financial support, some of the infrastructure, like the Zoom membership and stuff like that. But really, I think that part of the organization is really committed to taking the lead from youth and making their visions happen, whatever that looks like. So there hasn't been any reviewing or anything like that. We're just there to make it happen however we can.
Good. How long did it take to get the presentation together for the teachers? Because Dr. Lisa said before, the group usually presents to students. This is a flip. How did they prepare presenting to, or how did both the young people there out of the group, how did you prepare do a presentation for teachers, especially on a very sensitive subject?
I think, I don't know the exact, how many months do you think it was?
Samara, what are you thinking? Was it February? Amara, we're all was it February? We're all trying to remember something. They meet weekly for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Spring break landed in there. So some of the youth were in different spaces, and it took a couple of hours. They met a couple of hours each week. And I want to say February, March, April, May, 4 months, 4 months or so. Samara, would you? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we had a lot of run-throughs. I said this last time, and again this time. But this time we would get online at 7:30 on a school night, and then 7 on a school night, and then we have just a full-on 2-hour run-through until 9, and we do that almost every week for almost close to half a month, I guess. So.
Okay.
Yeah, the workshop itself was 2 hours long. It was a 2-hour long workshop. But Samara, do you want to speak a little bit to how you all, like what that kind of looked in terms of,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for like the difference with preparing and presenting to adults, like not just teachers, but like adults, that was the difference for me that kind of shifted because like generally I don't have a huge problem about just talking to teachers if they're willing to listen, you know. But I do know from our previous presentations that before we had been kind of like trying to make it like a little bit more interactive, maybe like fun, not as long because it was to people our own age and we didn't want to like just read like huge blocks of text to them because that could be like kind of hard to take in. So like there was like the expectation of it being like fun, I guess, was kind of brought down and more just like really educational for the teachers, I think, because we expected them to be a little bit more, I guess, like really expecting to, I guess, get a lot from it. So there was that difference, which was also different for us because we had to be used to reading just blocks of text, and there was a lot of sitting, a lot of just reading things out. Um, so that was a big difference. So I guess just the rehearsing really helped. I don't know if I really personally prepared myself for like the teachers, like thinking and talking to teachers, but I do know that there was like a physical difference in the presentation besides just like words.
Nice.
Yeah, to add to that, a couple of the key differences, like with the youth, some questions were asked beforehand, so we did do that with the teachers as well. There's a research component to this that Amara could probably speak to a bit. There was also, like Samara said, that not kind of a fun factor. So unlike with the youth, there was a pre-package that went out to all the attendees who registered that was very clear in terms of confidentiality, in terms of not approaching the youth if you see them in the class, in the schools, really making it safe for them to understand that this is a group of people who are talking to you, who you have power and over, right? And to respect that. There was a lot of kind of additional literature, research, information for teachers to have. And then, excuse me, and then during the actual presentation itself, there were points where teachers were asked for their input and they could ask questions, but the youth also decided points where they didn't want to hear from them at all. And they did a special section on the N word. And in that section, each of them spoke to different aspects of that. They determined they weren't going to have any questions from teachers. It's like, we're not going to have a debate with you all about this. And so there were some kind of very strategic thoughts around how and when they were going to answer questions and what that looked like. And then later we can talk about what's going to happen in terms of the follow-up. But I don't know if Amara may want to speak a little bit to any of those pieces.
Got it. So can you give me all your feeling when this first started live?
It was well, at first on my Zoom I was on I'm on my iPad, so there's only like 5 people down there, but then you start scrolling and it keeps scrolling, it just never ends, like so many people. And then it really set in when like 5 minutes in during our short like intro video, I saw like a teacher I knew and then another teacher I knew, and it's like, oh, I know some of these people. That was kind of weird. But when I talked, I turned off the video so I didn't have to see them or get stressed out or anything. So yeah, that took away some of the stress.
No problem at all. Who else? Those first few moments of starting up, were there butterflies? Were you nervous? Were you excited?
I was, I don't know, it was hard to describe because I have a very big computer in front of me, so I could see it was just a wall of teachers' faces, and then you could click onto the next slide, and it was another wall. There was like 3 slides of just teachers. So I was like, whoa, I'll just look at the presentation slide and not at their faces, because
Mm-hmm.
I was just really scared. And then it was a weird experience of hearing all of my friends talk on their parts during the presentation, and I was like, I kind of got a little bit like not bored, but I would check out. And then when it was my turn, the nerves would just hit me again. So it was like a lot of going between like, oh, I'm just sitting in my chair for half an hour waiting for my part, and then, oh, it's my part now, so gotta get on my game. And I think I did all right presenting, but inside I was just like, I don't know, I was just inside feeling every emotion. I was excited to be talking on something I was passionate about. I was like ready to cry from the nerves. So it was just a roller coaster for me, but I would do it again in a heartbeat.
But you got it done, right?
They got it done flawlessly. Honestly, like I has a parent, and then also has a person who's been involved with them. I was so excited for them. I was a bit nervous about maybe what adults might say. Like, so we were there kind of like monitoring that. But as a parent scrolling through and seeing, we had teachers, we also had staff people that were there. And I believe there might have been even some kind of counselor, social worker type people as well. But I recognized some of my children's. My older son went to the school as well in SD61, and I seeing their faces as well. And I also know of some teachers that I'm seeing that current students are engaging with around these issues. And so it was quite powerful to see them and just to kind of watch and really see them take it in. I had some teachers who were texting me saying things like that's one of the best, for example, land acknowledgements I've heard, or I can't believe they're speaking, that piece of information is so helpful. Like the amount of positive things that happened there. In addition, we had a couple of Black teachers on who spoke. And what was powerful about that, it's almost like the youth gave them the permission to say some things that I feel like they've been wanting to say to their colleagues for a while. And that was very powerful for them to speak, not only about reflecting on these youth are saying things that my child is saying and I've had to deal with, but it's too much pressure for me to be the one Black teacher in a room and then be in charge of Black History Month, or you all listening to me. And so all that stuff that they were doing didn't just have an impact on the youth in the space, but also, Black staff and faculty in the space as well. And that was pretty powerful, a bit unexpected. I don't know, Amara, how you felt.
I think the thing about this youth team is that everyone is extremely modest, and everyone will they'll say, oh, like we tried our best or whatever, but it's really like this was like a professional workshop that people were like absolutely, I think, stunned by the quality of it. And having worked with these folks for a couple of years, I wasn't surprised by that, but it was so it was so great to see this giant audience and to have it kind of be affirmed for everybody how important it is. We got a really nice message from one of the young people who attended the workshop last summer. Oops, sorry.
No problem. You're excited. That's all right. No problem.
She attended one of the workshops last summer for youth, and she sent us a nice message saying, like, that workshop was so impactful for me, and I've invited every single teacher in my school to come to this professional development workshop. And I was seeing all the teachers sign on from this person's school and really and stuff, and it's just showing the ripple effects, I think, of everything
Yeah.
these folks are doing. It's not just like the people who are in the room that are impacted, but it's rippling out to affect so many other people and help so many other young people, for sure.
I'd love to know
Oh,
some moments that really impacted during this conversation. I wouldn't even call it a presentation. It sounds like it was a conversation. Like to know, were there some moments that really stuck out from you? I know it's happened, but were there moments that really happened? And you don't have to give any teachers' names, but any sort of moments that stuck out. Because I always think when you have a success story, there should be one or two moments that say, you know what, never going to forget that. And when things are getting tough, things like that will keep me going. Were there any moments like that for any of you?
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You go first.
How to get them
Thank
back
you.
engaged in again?
I think for me was when at the very end, just in general, like the question and answer period that was facilitated by one of our other members and myself. Was just that in general was really interesting. But I think when the one Black teacher, I don't know if there was more than one Black teacher that was there, but the one that was, when she was speaking about being like the only Black teacher in her school or something like that, it really made me realize that I didn't want to sound naive, but it kind of just made me realize that this doesn't like stop like the feeling of like being the only Black person at something or this. It doesn't like go away after high school, and it makes me feel really grateful that we could give her a chance to feel like there are Black students that appreciate you just for being at the school or at a school and just being a teacher and being a resource, even if she isn't actively like going and doing things, just being there is just enough. It would be enough for me just to know that there's someone at the school that really just understands. And just when she was talking about like for Black History Month, like just like the pressure of like even being a student, I feel like a pressure to speak or say something or put something together. So that was really something that stood out to me.
Thank you for the share, Avi.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that something that was like, and I guess hit me was like, I said earlier that I turned off my camera so that I wouldn't get like stressed out when I was talking. But when my colleagues were talking, I turn on the videos and I just like to watch the people's reaction. And there was one person who was just like right up close, and they were just like this, and it just seemed like they were just like absorbing everything. When there's something sad, they'd be like sad. Like it looked like they were just like in the moment, like totally just like absorbing everything. And we asked everybody to turn on their cameras. A lot of people still didn't, but the people that did really looked like they were absorbing the information. And during the question period, a lot of them were asking questions, and then they were super grateful for the answers that they got. So it's like this kind of listening effect, because we didn't know going in if they were going to be like sort of like actually like taking in the information, or if they were just going to be like, well, I was kind of forced to do this type of thing. So seeing them kind of absorb the information was like really cool. And I can answer the question that says, did the teachers ask any questions during the presentation?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So during our presentation, we have a question period at the end, which I think was 20 minutes.
That's Samara and Aisha.
Yeah, And so Samara and Aisha, who wasn't able to make it today, they were answering the questions in that 20-minute period. So that's when the teachers were allowed to ask questions. Some unmuted, but we told them that you had to mute yourself during the presentation. And if they had any extra questions at the end, of the meeting, they were allowed to talk. If we were still there, they were allowed to ask questions to us. But so like Dr. Lisa, they'd still be on the call, and Ms. Nichola would still be on the call to answer any extra questions. So we have a question period at the end of our show for the teachers to ask.
And to add to that, there is going to be this Friday, I'm holding a question and answer period for anybody who attended for an hour. And that will just be with me as educator, etc. And then next week, Thursday, so 2 Thursdays from now, all the attendees have been invited to come for an hour to sit with the youth and ask any additional questions or give comments, etc. We'll be there to monitor that. And so we like to do that a couple weeks after a workshop, because, after you do a workshop, you're like, oh, I wish I would have asked that. Or, you may notice some things in your school now. And so it gives people the opportunity to kind of reflect on what happened and to come back and have access to that again. So the youth meet weekly, like we said. And so one of those meetings, half of that meeting is going to be teachers being invited in to ask additional questions. So, and I just wanted to say, in terms of what that impact, like watching, kind of things that stood out, the 2 things that stood out for me were, one, Samara told a very beautiful, kind of heartbreaking story around the N-word when she was in grade 8. I think it was grade 8. Samara, was it grade 8 or grade 7?
Grade 7.
Grade 7. And I think it was so powerful because it showed teachers that, now she's in grade 10, but still remembers that incident. And the power that teachers have in the moment, that we carry certain things with us, our students carry that with us, and it impacts their families, etc. And I just recall when she was relating that story, that it was something that made a lot of people just kind of think for a moment. The other thing was, we had somebody who I think is a little bit, thinks more is happening at their school around dealing with racialized violence than is. And so that caught everybody kind of a bit off guard, and we're like, huh. And afterwards, that conversation, we ended up having a conversation and not feeling quite comfortable with the idea that it was out there, that there's a school that's just doing all this stuff. So we made a collective decision. The youth brought that up. We made a collective decision to actually write an email to all attendees that we want to reemphasize that this experience, the experience that the teacher related, was not the experience of the youth in that moment. And that was really important for us to do, instead of just letting it hang there. Yeah.
Excellent. Anyone want to add anything, any take-homes or memories from the session? Because I'm impressed, because you approached a group of teachers and or administrators and you got them to say yes. So that's a huge win. So kudos to everybody that's been involved. That's just a huge win. I'm very, very impressed. And I know that it probably, some of you were nervous, but you got one underneath your belt. Don't be nervous anymore. Be excited.
Yeah. Amara, do you have an idea of how many districts or where different people came from?
Yeah, I was good. You're reading my legend online, Dr. Lisa. I wanted to know how many people attended.
Yeah, so
approximately.
We had, about 84 people were able to make it to the workshop, of like 92 or so that signed up, and all the people who signed up,
that's impressive.
Yeah, really, really awesome. And everyone who couldn't make it like sent their regrets, and was really like, it seemed like it was something that people were really, really excited about from the get-go. The different districts, I think it was mostly our South Island district, so school district 61 and 63. So that's like all of what's called Victoria and Saanich and the Gulf Islands. We had a few people joining from Salt Spring, and a couple of people joining from Vancouver as well. I'm not as familiar with the school districts there, but from at least a couple of different high schools from Vancouver. So a pretty wide range for the first go around of this kind of project for sure.
And I wanted to
Excellent.
add that we
Go ahead.
had a couple of districts, because not all districts have ProDs on the same day. And so there's a couple of districts that I know administrators reached out to me and were like, we would love to have this, right? But we had to do it on the days that our students were available. So there was a desire there. We also had a principal reach out who had a Black youth in their school who was like, how can I become part of BI? Like, I have things I want to say. Can I join? Right? So we have that element as well. And then the idea, again, that these were teachers and so forth, but administrators have their own kind of professional day. And so there's the opportunity of thinking around administrators hearing this kind of information, because a lot of what the youth talk about come down to certain things like maybe policies and, you know, things like that. And I definitely know that this is something that not only could go across Canada, right? Like this, the model that they have is something that I think other youth could take up, right? Like in Toronto, a group of youth could do this for their district. And we actually have I work a bit in Indigenous space, and some of my Indigenous colleagues are like, this would be awesome. And thinking about this group working with Indigenous youth for them to create their own and how to create kind of safer spaces for Indigenous youth in class, right? I mean, I get excited because it's just exciting. And if you all could see what they do and what they did, it's amazing. And yeah, they've impacted a lot of people and can continue to do so.
Excellent. Yeah. Agent Bay is saying, this is historical. I am happy to learn of this presentation and hear that youth leaders are giving voice to these topics. Very necessary. So everyone should be very proud, because that's a gentleman from the United States, not even from Canada, from the US, is saying this is good. And he has a question. Have you been met with any resistance doing your mission? And if yes, how have you managed that?
Amara, do you want to talk about that from your perspective, like as the administrative perspective? And I can speak to that in terms of the kind of teacher perspective, maybe.
Sure. Are you thinking like from the like an organizational perspective?
Yeah, I don't think we've really. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. I think what really had brought about this workshop in particular was the resistance that the youth in the group are facing from their teachers when they try to talk about racism that they're experiencing or object to things that are happening in the classroom that are not okay. And so in some ways, this was kind of like a response to that resistance to talking about racism in schools, even to talking about like Black history or Black joy or things that like are not even, shouldn't even really have any kind of controversial aspect to them, but that students were meeting some resistance from their teachers and other people in their schools. So I think that's obviously an issue that everyone in the group has faced. And I think that was definitely the biggest take home for me, was having been like lucky enough to hear the conversations from the youth over the last couple of years about things that they wish that they could kind of stand up and say to their teachers. And then last week, hearing them actually being able to say those things and having people like being like an audience and having to listen and really hopefully absorb that information as well. But yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, and then I'd love to throw this to the youth. The resistance this is actually a response, I feel like, again, like Amir said, to the resistance. Hearing from so many youth, whether it's in class, like literature or whatever, and youth trying to stand up and being pushed back, whether it's this idea of so many teachers, quote unquote, not knowing what to do. And it ends up landing on the youth to be doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? Like it's not their job to teach teachers, right? But there is, especially as we go more and more into young people using their voices, and there's a disconnect between that and teachers going through their programs and being trained and how to deal with, these issues, it's quite stunning. And so I feel like this is a response to kind of some of that resistance. I feel that resistance when we're doing our own trainings around anti-racism with educators, etc. And then you have a group of educators who really are interested, and they just aren't quite sure, it seems like, that they know what to do. And so this is also a way not to put that pressure again back on our youth. Like, it's not up to them to help you figure that stuff out, right? Like, there's just...
There were also a lot of questions, like there were a lot of follow-up questions to the original questions they asked, and I like to say they had a lot of help me vibes in a sense. So it was like, I don't know what to do, like, please help me, like, I'm stressed out, I don't know what to do. And then there are a lot of questions about, like, well, what if somebody says something racist in our class? And it's like, we just did our whole kind of workshop on that, but like, okay. So, and then after we answered, like, maybe like the radio, like listening to music type of questions, there was like, well, what if a white student's playing that music? And there were just a lot of follow-up questions, which we didn't really expect that much. So, yeah, so that was kind of some, I guess, resistance in a sense. But
Well, I know that someone has to leave us in a few moments, so I'd just like to have her give some final words before she has to depart.
Thank you so much, everyone, for inviting me to this conversation, and also for being able to be part of this workshop. I just feel so fortunate to be able to be a part of this group, and I feel like this particular event was such a culmination of the things that we've talked about over the last couple of years, and it just really feels like a total triumph for the youth team. And yeah, I'm just so happy to have been able to work with you all, and I just feel very, very, very grateful for that, for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure, and I hope we will see you again. You have a great rest of the day. No problem. I want to ask, as we're starting to wind down the conversation, youth, how did you feel after you finished?
I after the presentation, it was in the middle of the day, but I was ready for a nap because it felt like it was 2 hours. Like it was just 2 hours, but it felt like it felt like I went into into a different world for 2 hours, and then just went back to normal life after that, which was kind of weird. I was like, how do I get food and do things? Because I just was so wrapped up in talking about racism and talking to the teachers and answering questions, and then I was done, didn't have to talk to anyone. So that was it was partial relief and a little bit of oh, no one's here, just going around doing things. It was very, yeah, and that's generally a sense that I get after being on the computer for a long time. It's just a bit of detachment, but it was also very I kind of walked around the house. I was like, yeah, I just did that. Yeah, I was like, yeah, looking in the mirror, like, hey, who's that cool cat? You know.
I love it.
Yeah, I was feeling real good about myself. Also very tired, but I was in a good mood. You know.
Excellent. Congratulations, Avi.
Yeah, just everything she said, and I feel like I was just every time I finish a meeting, we go to our debrief room, and I just feel like we just pump some gospel, full volume, just just blast some music, just like we just did that, like rejoice, like it was just it's just a great feeling to be in the to be in that room, because you're like, wow, we because it's just kind of like a settle down type of time, like you can chill. There's like there wasn't that much stress before, but obviously there are people watching you, there's nobody watching you, so just like you're kind of back in like a little mini meeting, and you're just like, yeah, it's just all positive vibes in there. It's like, good job, Samara, good job, Aisha, good job, all of Dr. T or whatever. It's just positive vibes all around. And it's like, you just did that. They're already getting positive comments. So yeah, it's very positive ending. And we're like, it's so funny. We just finished, and one of my colleagues was like, you know what? Now let's go to like university profs or something.
You're reading my alleged mind again and saying what's next. But before we get there, I just want to encourage you, and so great, the importance of celebrating your wins in real time is very, very important. So do not lose that habit of celebrating the wins in real time. And so Avi, as you said, you already took my question. What's next?
We have only had one meeting after the workshop. So that one was basically a sort of longer debrief in a sense. It was more of like what's the word? It was like not a review isn't the right word, but like kind of just like what we could do better, what we liked, what we didn't like, just kind of like that sort of thing. So that was mainly last meeting. So I haven't talked much about what's to happen.
That'll come next.
But yeah, so nothing really that much.
So that debrief was held by a university researcher, and so myself, Nichola, Amara, we're not in that conversation. It's youth only. And then we're having our own conversation. We have a whole laundry list of things. But what we have to do is at our next meeting, we're going to be talking, like I said, our next meeting, they're going to be answering questions from the teachers again. But we're going to be talking about what is going to be next. Part of it is the natural evolution of this group. They go to the next grade level. And so we have a couple of people who are going to age out, for lack of a better word. And then it's about, what do you all want to do next? Do we want to do teachers again in more districts? And that's a good idea because they've already done it once and they're comfortable with it. They may want to tweak it. Do we want to offer it across Canada? Maybe step into the US, right? Like we're from the States. So it depends on what they see that they want to do next, because they have all this material waiting for them. And so it's youth led. So it's really going to be up to them to decide how they want to go and which direction they want to go in again. But this was so highly successful. I imagine that in my own head, I would love to see them do something in person. I think it'd be great for them to go to a conference and just talk about this process and how this works, because it would be amazing if more schools and spaces who are talking to students would actually work with students to deliver these things. So we're headed to the legislature Monday and Tuesday. We've been invited by one of the MLAs here. So part of our group is going tomorrow afternoon. Another part's going Tuesday morning. And they're going to meet with an MLA and then also get the opportunity to see a question period. And I just don't want to miss this question. We saw, I know our time's short, around the youth leaders, what their view is or opinion is of their teachers.
Yeah, I wanted to get that in. Has either one of your opinion of your teachers or the group that you communicate with, has there been any shift in opinion, or is it still neutral in regards to your encounters with teachers?
Yeah, I think
You two are fantastic. You're so polite. It's wonderful. I love it. Go ahead.
Do you want to go, Avi?
I'll go.
Okay, he'll go, Avi. Avi's taking charge this time. He'll lead. Okay.
Yeah, so I think a very, very common thing that we got in our meeting was Black History Month. And it was a lot of questions about, or like, basically, like, there's no real school representation of Black History Month. Nobody talks about it. There were some questions at the end, like, what do you think about Black History Month? And we were like, well, nobody talks about it. It's like, it's not a thing. Like, it's not even on, like, the school announcements or anything. Like, there's nothing. And so our school, they were like, whoa, we got this Black History Month poster thing. We put it on the wall. And my mom looked it over, and all of the people were African American, so there were no actual African Canadians on there. So that was something. But yeah, that was a very common one, I think.
Well, your mom can get in contact with me. There's a gentleman named Robert Small that's been doing the legacy poster for at least 25 years, and it showcases Black Canadians.
Yeah, that really quickly, that particular incident, we talked back to the principal and said, there are African Canadians. I mean, great that you're giving props to Black folk in other countries, but what does it say when our African Canadian youth are putting together a Black History Poster Month with 20 persons of African Caribbean Black descent, and they themselves didn't notice that there are no Canadians, right? Like, that's a bigger issue. And so that opened up another thing. But Avi just said to me, I just realized I didn't answer the specific question you asked.
It's all right.
So, Samara, if you want to go, that he'll go back to that specific question.
Sure. Yeah, with my interactions with my teachers, there were teachers from my school that participated in the presentation. And I do know that for them, I have because there was an event going on at my school that prevented most of the teachers that wanted to sign up, because they would have been busy that day. But there were teachers from my school that decided, no, this is more important, or this means more to me. And I just had another level of respect for them because they were missing something else for this. And I do yeah, and it was one of the teachers there was one of my teachers, and it was really nice to see them there. It made me feel like I could there was a person at my school that I could talk to, that they could understand what I was going through at any given time, and that they might have a better understanding of me as a person. So there was that. There was also people from my school that were talking about things that were not exactly correct, and I was like, oh, okay, are you sure about that? Because I go to that school, and that may not be entirely true. So there was that. But I don't think they were trying to be dishonest. They just didn't have all the information. So there was that. It was just but it was generally very positive for me. And I do really appreciate my teachers that did come. It made me feel so much more safe at school, and accepted. They did care. And hopefully, with the Black History Month thing, that is an issue at my school. There was not a single mention of it. There might have been recommended books at the library, but not in one class did they mention anything, not even a documentary, absolutely nothing. So I am hoping that maybe more teachers will be aware, because I don't want to have to be in charge of that, because that's what I was told. For that to happen, I'd have to be in charge of something, and I don't want to have to join the club for that. So yeah, I just hope that this added to my school's awareness, and I'm glad that some of my teachers can be a little bit closer to me, like just have that extra level of knowing and caring.
Well put. Well, I think we'll end it off on that. Like to say thank you to each one of you for all you have done, all you are doing, and you will be doing going forward. If the producer can put the contact information for the organization on the screen. Dr. G, I'm going to leave you with the final words. Any final words you have for us today?
Just a couple. One, we need to make sure we're talking about the contributions of our people all year round. And that's one thing I just encourage anybody listening, if you're a parent, if you're an educator, etc., that the month is maybe the icing on the cake, but we need to be talking about, Black history in September, October, November, December, and not just the shortest day of the month. I would like to say, please reach out to us. If this is something, a model you think might work where you are at, that would be wonderful and fabulous for you to reach out to us and let us know that information. And just again, thank you, Dr. Vibe, so much for this opportunity. These are incredible young people, and it literally warms my heart knowing that this is our future generation coming up. And I really hope people it makes them excited about this, about our future.
All right. Well, each one of you make sure you and your team and your families and the community, make sure you give each other grace. So I know we will see each other soon, either on the screen or digitally. So thank you so much. Oh,
can I say one other quick thing? I just wanted to let you know that the African Heritage Association Vancouver Island, it's an association that's been here for well over a decade. They actually honored the BI group at the annual awards on April 30th for youth leadership. So that is awesome. So proud of them. And their communities recognize that. Yeah.
The modest leaders of tomorrow.
I know, right?
There we go. Take care, family. Be well and keep the faith. We will catch you soon.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Agent Bay says, excellent program today. I'm very proud of these young leaders. Thank you so much, Agent Bay. Much appreciated. There you are. Rub that hair. All right, there we go. All right. It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I'd like to thank everyone who watched or will listen or watch or listen to it on the replay or watch it on the replay. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. As always, I close out with this. Oh, actually, before I close out, you can catch me 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Sundays, Black Canada Talking. Monday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, I co-host The Morning Vibe with Ryan Knight, who is the Executive Director of the African Canadian Business Network. And then on Saturday evenings, I host and produce the State of Things with Aisha and Jill. Aisha K. Staggers and Jill Jones give their takes from a Black woman point of view of what's going on in America and around the world. So now we close out. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. And remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Next week, also thanks to BIA Media, next week, our run table is back, scheduled as always. El Jones, Sarah Ayango, and Cesar Nadima Musa. Do not miss it, and subscribe to the Dr. Vibe channel on YouTube. You will be kept up to date on the epic conversation we have. God bless, peace, well, keep the faith, walk good.